Welcome to the ASA Podcast, where we focus on subcontractors, the construction industry, and the issues and people making an impact. The ASA Podcast is brought to you by the American Subcontractors Association and the Foundation of the American Subcontractors Association. Hi, everybody. This is Mike Klein. I'm back again for another episode of the ASA Podcast. Today, I am with Adrienne Smoot-Edwards. She's the president of Regeneracy. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Regeneracy, Inc. in Washington, D.C. Regeneracy is a specialty contractor that provides historic restoration of wood and metal in the D.C. area. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys have been around for about 20 years. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Adrienne, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what brought you to the contracting industry?
Okay, so I've been in construction for about 40-ish years. Started working at a general contractor. It was George Hyman Construction Company. Now they're Clark Construction. And started in the accounting department and just kind of worked my way through the accounting to being a controller to then working for other general contractors doing learning different ins and outs in construction, and thought, I could probably pull this off and do something. And then an opportunity came for me to take what I do as a hobby and turn it into a company. So we've been doing it now for 23 years.
Wow.
Historic restoration.
So you started out doing this as a hobby, just, was it, your own property that you were working on, or doing it for friends? Or
hotel furniture stores were always selling me, the old hotel furniture. Me and my mom would go and get pieces, and then I'm like, oh, this needs to be restored. Well, I didn't call it restored. I was like, this needs a facelift. So I'd give it a facelift, and I found that very calming and relaxing. So then I found out we could actually do it by restoring historic fabric, and that there was a need for it. So I got in pretty good with a niche market doing what I like to do.
That's fantastic. I love that. And now you've been doing it for 23 years, and you mentioned before that you work on historic buildings and.
Oh yeah, we've done a lot of historic properties in the district. Probably over 100 projects in the district. A lot of federal buildings, district buildings, some commercial buildings. And you've seen our work everywhere. If you've driven through DC, you've seen our work. You just didn't know it was us doing it. General contractors, their names on the buildings, but all the subcontractors, yeah, we're invested in it.
Yeah. And you said but it's primarily, you said commercial work. It's not
primarily commercial. Historic door restoration, window restoration, architectural millwork, and some metal work restoration.
Very cool. And so do you branch outside of the DC area, or is it, do you get into Virginia, Maryland, those areas?
We've gotten one or two projects in Maryland and Virginia, but for the most part, 98% of our work is district work.
Okay. And your typical client, is that, government agencies, or is that,
well,
who is your typical
general contractors who then get the work from like the federal government or the district government or private entities.
Okay. And you told me before you are on the board of the ASA Metro Washington chapter.
I am on the board. I'm part of the advocacy team. I always have trouble saying that. So we basically just go around trying to advocate for everything subcontractors need to be successful in the industry.
How long have you been involved with the ASA?
About 2 years now.
Okay.
I mean, they chased me for about 5 years, but I really thought it was more like a social club. And I was like, I don't have time for social clubs. But Casey really just came at me and said, look, this is what we do. we believe you have a voice. We'd like for you to use that to help us move our agenda forward. So once I got into it and started paying attention to what they were doing, I was like, oh yeah, I have to be involved.
Yeah, I'm sure they're glad to have you. I've been familiar with ASA for the past couple of years, and it's especially on the advocacy front. There's a lot of power in what they do, and adding your voice to that's important, along with all the other subs around who are, facing things all the time. So, speaking as one voice is very helpful. So I'm glad you're involved in that.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's opened a lot of opportunity for me to speak from a not so much as a sub, but as someone who has been on the sub side and the general contractor side to try to find a means for us to do better at working together, especially when it comes to payments and change orders and just contract language. And I mean, there's a slew of things we just need to work better on to help us unite.
Well, let's dive into that. I mean, you mentioned pay, and I know one of the big things that we wanted to talk about in preparation for this discussion, you shared with us a whole list of things that are going on, and we kind of narrowed it down to probably two of the biggest. One of those being prompt pay,
Right.
and the other one, and as you know, I mean, that's a big issue with an ASA. And then the other one that I want to make sure we hit on is change orders, especially because of how change orders are affecting payments. So just for our listeners, in case anybody in this hemisphere of subcontractors is not familiar with the prompt pay issue, a simple summary is it's about the timeliness of payments to subs on construction projects.
Right.
So importantly, subcontractors typically have to pay for materials and labor upfront, but there's often lengthy delays in receiving payments from general contractors or property owners. And would you say those delays are, I've read some info that says it's 60 to 120 days, sometimes even longer.
Yes.
Yeah. And then if you get a change order involved, it could be,
It could be a year.
Yeah. And so that's hugely impactful to your ability to do business. I mean, you've got to front all that money and you just sit there and wait.
And wait. Yes.
And wait.
It's a difficult situation to be in, and the Prompt Pay Act, as they call it, it just means after the general contractor pays, then they have so many days to pay you. But it really doesn't resolve the problem with the process of how it even gets to the point that general contractor gets payment. So that whole prompt payment sounds great. And, it is great. After the general contractor gets paid, he has 7 days to pay us. Great. But when you bill on the 20th of January and it's forecasted through the end of January, so that's January 30th, and then the general contractor is collecting my invoice, it's 20 other trades. He's got to reconcile those and see that they are all okay. Did everyone project to the right amount? No. Okay, let's go back and revisit this. Then they take it to the owner or the owner's rep, and then they doing their own self-evaluation of how, where this project is. Do the invoices reflect what's been paid? And then it goes through another step, I guess, going through financing to find out, okay, yep, we can fund this, this, and this. No, that change order is not funded yet. We can't do that. So by the time that your January 20th invoice might not be officially approved until February 15th or February 20th. And then once it's approved, they got another 30 days to then fund it. And then once they fund it, now you're looking at the middle of March, they'll fund it. Then the GC has to get the money to you, and they've got upwards of 7 days. Then we put it in the bank, and sometimes the bank will hold it for 10 days before we can spend it. So January 30th, you've billed for, you've now worked the month of February, you've billed for it, you now work the month of March, and you billed for it. And in April, you're getting access to the funds that you built in January. And everyone's asking you, how come you can't speed up? What's going on? I was like, I need funding. I need the money that I billed you to make this project happen. It's really odd that that disconnect exists. Like, why are you asking me to come out to a project consistently every day, every day, every day? I'm spending money on materials and labor every day. And I'm not funded until April for something I did in January.
So do you have to carry like
that's even worse, because if it's not approved, that April money does not include the change order.
So do you have to fund this from previous projects, or do you have a line of credit, or is that all, I mean,
No line of credit.
You're independently wealthy and you have the deepest pockets in the world?
No, this is the best example of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Constant. Someone's not getting paid in order for, because our very top thing is payroll. Make sure payroll gets paid. Then it's make sure materials are on the job site. Then it's make sure the rent and utilities and taxes are paid in that order. So you are constantly, and this is the other thing that's really hard for me to comprehend, is when you ask for a deposit to start all of this, if you're not released to do the project till January, and then you ask for a deposit, you're still expected to work January, February, March, and April. So you might get the deposit in April for, again, that you're starting in January. If you don't get that money, realize that you are using other monies that have come in to fund this particular project. So when that money does come in, I do have some general contractors like, well, we just paid you. Why'd you use that money for something else? Like, because I use other people's money to do your work. So it's a vicious cycle that it has no explanation to me for why it works this way, especially in construction, because everything in construction is date driven. Right. You have to finish by this date. You have to get this done by this date. Everything is fully scheduled except payment.
And there's no laws that drive that. I mean, I know they're working on that ASA is involved in the Prompt Payment Act. Well, so a couple of questions. Is it every single project that you have this trouble on, or is it are some better than others?
No, some are better than others, but usually that depends on the owner and their process. But for the most part, it's the same on every construction project. And I don't think it's done intentionally. I think the process is just not understood, that it is the subcontractor that's financing it. Some people do think we have these lines of credits, but banks don't like construction companies, especially small ones. They're like, no, your invoices are too subjective, because they know we might have the invoice in the system, but we don't know when it's going to get paid, and neither do they. And then in some cases, when you're looking at our books, you're looking at the fact that we've spent money on change orders. We can't put an invoice against it to offset it on our income and balance sheet. So it looks like you're overspending on this project. I'm like, no, that change order might get approved. We don't know when, but it might. And then, of course, there's the retainage aspect where everything we do, they hold 10% of it till the end of the project. So you're not booking that money, and you're not booking the change order money. So your balance sheets don't look good.
I mean, it begs the question, how do you stay in business and why do you keep doing what you're doing? I mean, obviously you love it.
Oh, I love what I do. I pray a lot. I'm like, okay, Lord, we need payroll this week. Have somebody, please, somebody pay us this week. And it's been working out, but it's a nail biter every week, trying to figure out, is this person going to pay us? So I'm spending time on calls like, are you going to pay us this week? And then go to the next one. Are you going to pay us this week? Are you going to pay us next week? When do you think we're going to get paid? There's always we don't know. We don't know where it is in the process.
Are there any specific examples? I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that, or any, specific examples that you can refer to say, just tell us a story about something that happened on one of your projects.
Oh, this was interesting. On one of my projects, I'm not going to say where, but the person that was overseeing the project, we'll call him the owner's rep, was like, "Oh, did you get your payment?" Now, this was, I think, in December. He was asking me, did we get ours? Because he was wondering, why is this taking so long? I was like, well, as soon as we get the payment, we'll be able to knock this out. And he says, "Oh, which payment?" I said, "The September payment." So he called the general contractor and said, "Hey, why haven't you paid her for September?" And I could hear the general contractor say, "Because you haven't paid us for September." He said, "Yeah, I know, but why does that affect her?" So I think there's just this big disconnect over how the projects get funded. He seriously thought the general contractor would do the funding on his behalf in order for us to keep moving. And the general contractors, no, you pay us, we pay them. So that's why they have the pay when paid clause in our contracts. When they get paid, they'll release payment to us.
And how long does that normally take? And I know that's not in every contract, right? Or is that a law in your region now that it has to pay when paid?
Yep. It's now illegal in Virginia. We're working on making it illegal in Maryland. And it is still legal in DC, but it's those kind of contract languages that we're trying to change with ASA. But basically, it's in the contracts that we sign, pay when paid. And, if you don't want to do that, then, it's, well, they might go with the next bidder kind of situation. So, you want to play ball, this was why I say it's a misconception. When I was processing invoices as a general contractor, me and some of my friends were like, "Gosh, this sub calls every week begging for payment. Why do they do that? Why aren't they ready to be in this league?" And, because our perception was, of course they have the money. We just gave them money. But until you're in it and you realize the turnover, the cash that goes out as a sub on a daily basis, until you live it, I don't think you can address it being the person on the other side. Like, we had rules: don't process an invoice with a change order unless we have a change order out to the owner that's been approved. That keeps the general contractor's book straight. So you got this poor sub billing you every month for something, and you're telling him, "Nope, that's not approved. Nope, 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 rebill." And you don't realize the monumental financial hardship you're causing that sub, because you're more worried about the books being balanced than whether or not this real thing that's happening to the subcontractor is being addressed.
So what is the solution then?
The solution, one, I think the industry has to come to terms with trying to find a way to have a date certain for payment. If you think about it, the whole FICO system is driven by 30 days. Everything. No matter what mortgage company you deal with, they have the same 30-day cycle. You pay by the 5th, on the 15th. If you haven't paid on the 16th, it's going to be a late fee. And it's every mortgage company. Every car payment is done on 30. They'll even say, "Well, which day do you want your car payment due?" So we can make it something that you can balance, something that you can budget. Construction is the only thing where you cannot budget month to month on what you're going to do, because you don't know when the money's coming in. So my first fix would be that on a date certain every month, a subcontractor is going to get paid. Just every month. I think the other thing, I would fix is maybe the process of grouping every subcontractor together at one time. Maybe you do the finished trades one week on an invoice, you do the mechanical trades another week on an invoice, something where you're not trying to gather every subcontractor's invoice and trying to validate it at the same time for one payment. It's overwhelming. So if it's so overwhelming, break it up. Or do like they tell us to do, and I know this sounds, crazy, but if we can't meet a schedule, hire more people. Make our schedule work. So my thing, okay, hire more people. Make this process work. Hit these dates. Pay us on a date certain. And I guarantee you, if a sub misses a billing date 1 month, and he knows that, well, that means I won't get paid on the 30th of the next month, he will get you everything you need for you to process that invoice. But right now it's, oh, I'm still waiting on this sub to turn in his invoice. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, why is my invoice still on hold? Because you're waiting on him. Like, leave him behind. Keep the train moving. Make everything date sensitive. It just shouldn't be that hard. And I really, really want them to stop with the once it's approved, cut the check. Why are we waiting an additional 30 days once you get the approval that the invoice is valid? The invoice is valid. It already took you 15 or 20 days to get to that point. So pay it. Why are we then put in our pool to wait an additional 30 days? So I would get that eliminated. And right now with ASA, I'm trying to, as we talk to different owners and general contractors, them to really tell me, what is this process? What is the wait? Why does the wait exist? Like, because then we can address how to fix it. But the whole not knowing makes it difficult for me to assess what could fix it, because no one's been able to explain why the delays are there.
So it is quite a mystery. It seems like there are just no rules around it. I mean, I know accounting has rules, right? I mean, it's the GAAP rules I'm vaguely familiar with. But so, and like you said, the sort of the FICO common thing of 30 days and you make a payment. So what are they waiting on? Is it just slow payment coming from the owners? Is it, that, I guess it has a trickle down effect to everything.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the people that are financing the project, because clearly you have money set aside for this project somewhere.
Right.
Who then, like, where is it, and why, after the invoice is approved, does it then have to go to that financing agency for them to then do their own evaluation? Like, why so many layers of approval? Let's just process it, release the funds.
I know there's an issue with especially federal construction. And I mean, we all know the federal bureaucracy is legendarily frustrating. Is it common among private projects as well?
Some private projects. Most private projects I find move a lot faster. And I think it's just because there's not as many layers for the approval process. I just know that from my days of being with general contractors that mostly did regular commercial projects, the payments just didn't take as long as government payments take.
It's maddening. I mean, I go back to, I don't know, you must love what you do to stay in the business and do that. When you meet people in the contracting world, people who are involved in a lot of the different trades, a lot of them do have a passion for it, and they do it because they enjoy it. You know, whether it's digging trenches or carpentry or electrical or whatever. I mean, there are people who get into that, and that's why they do it.
Oh yeah, I'm very passionate
Yeah,
about.
but
I,
it's
I like being hands-on. I like being a part of it. I like resolving stuff. I mean, I really, really love it. I just want to be in an industry that allows me to really push the limit on what I think my team can do. But we're so constrained by the money that comes in. Like, I would love to invest in new equipment and new processes. I would love to hire help, but you just can't budget and plan on those things when you've got to finance every project that comes along. So it is kind of a handicap. And one thing I wanted to say, I know a lot of people tend to think that government says, oh no, but you're a small business, you get paid right away. Like, no, only if you have a direct contract with the government do they pay small businesses right away. When you go through a general contractor, you are part of a big machine and you get paid when the big machine gets paid.
You get paid after the big machine gets paid, apparently.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
I will say there are some general contractors that will say offer you a discount. Like if we offer them a discount, they will pay the invoice early. But then, you're giving up profit, yes, but you're also able to keep moving forward. So I weigh that sometimes. And then there are some general contractors that really do understand that small businesses can't sustain it. So I have worked with some that have like, okay, we'll give you some of this early. We're doing what we can. We'll see what money is available after we pay our other bills. But again, the general contractor is not, as they tell us, we're not a bank either. So it all just boils down to, unless subs and general contractors can get with owners and owners reps and the equity investors or whatever, and get them to understand the impact that these delays have on us, and even getting their buildings built on time. If I could count on money coming in every 30 days and know that that money's coming, I could freely spend for more materials to jump on your job faster. But I can't do that and say, oh, no, we're going to have to wait. I'm not sure when this money's coming in, and we need to be prepared for this bill when it hits. Because, we've got insurance that will cut you off if you do not pay it on time. We got landlords that will kick you out of your building if you do not pay on time. So that stops us from moving quickly on projects and buying extra materials, or even buying materials in bulk where you can take advantage of the discount that you bought it in bulk. We can't do that either. So there's just so many ways construction could actually save money in building if they just paid their building, paid for the work being built timely.
How many people do you employ? How big is your company?
I have between 28 and 32. I want to say it's 32.
Okay. And how many projects are you typically juggling at once?
Right now, we're probably juggling about 15.
Wow.
Well, I have to rely on all those 15 to have some money coming in at any given time during the month.
So you've got 32 livelihoods that you have to worry about in addition to your own, in addition to sustaining the company.
Right.
Wow, that's got to be intense.
It is. Yeah. It's a little rough sometimes. And sometimes I have to look at the crew and say, guys, don't cash your checks today. Wait, maybe Tuesday. But my team's been with me for so long, and they're used to the hills and valleys that they will wait, and usually without complaint.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have a great team, especially and in this in construction as well. It's, as you know, hiring is difficult, and there's such a shortage of workers and skilled workers.
Yes.
It sounds like you're in a good place to have a reliable and loyal team like that.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. The team I have, they work well together. They're used to my personality, because it can be challenging. Um, and they're used to, Adrienne, can we get this material today? Nope. Wait till next week. We'll try to get. Well, so what do you want us to work on now? And then, we'll find stuff to just let's just keep the project moving until I can get that material for you. So we learned to communicate without money.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So there's, we haven't really talked about change orders a whole lot. I know that is, we touched on it in terms of how it affects the overall payment process, or how it can affect. What is there? There's more to it though. I mean, is there a lack of process around change orders? Is that why they become difficult, or is it? What can you talk about that?
Who owns a change order? So in some cases, it's clear, it's not on the drawings, it's an official change. But what happens is it's in the midst of the base contract work. And if it's not performed, the base contract work can't continue. So we get the price and proceed. We know it's a change order. Price it for us and keep the project moving. So you price it, you keep the project moving, and then you're like, have you approved it yet? Has it been approved yet? We're still waiting on other pricing to come in because they want it to be a lump sum price when they give it to the owner. Okay. When can I bill it? Well, you can't bill it yet. And then it gets to near the end of the project and you're still like, well, the owner didn't want to pay that. It's too high. Can you adjust your number? Now, the work's already done. So we're just stuck with the 50 cents on a dollar, 60 cents on a dollar, 80 cents on the dollar. Like, what can we do to get these costs down? That's one kind of change order. Then there's a change order that goes real smooth. It happened, you change, you get it adapted, and it flows right through, no problem. Then there's a change that who really owns it? Does the owner own it, or does the general contractor own it? Was it on the drawings and you just didn't give it to anyone as a scope item? So now it becomes a change order to the sub, and the sub is like, well, I can see it's on the drawings. So it's not me. Like, that means it's on you. So you owe me for this change order, but they try to do we're still waiting on the owner's because maybe they're trying to figure out how to make it a change order on the owner side. So I call those the GC bus. They really need your help. Sometimes they'll own up to it and say, we missed this one. Can you help us out? Great. Then there's some that are just stubborn and they're just not going to admit that, it's their mistake and they're just trying to find a way to get it paid for. But I do know there are some general contractors that even when the owner is trying to nickel and dime them on it, the reason we don't get funded is because sometimes the general contractor is trying to fight for the full dollar value. But the weight is what kills subs. So waiting for someone to approve something that's already a work in place and you can't rip it out, you're just kind of stuck with it.
Do you have any, or are you aware? I'm sure it probably, I would think that there are some statistics maybe the government has, but are you aware of any statistics that show how many subs end up going out of business just because of these delays in payments?
I'm sure there are a lot. I don't know what the statistics are, but I can tell you there are a lot of subs that started when I did that are no longer in business. Small business subs. They just said, forget it. This isn't worth it. I mean, because you think about it, you're the person in charge. You're the one that has to sign on everything. So, for me, My 800 plus credit score when I started this business tanked to like 500.
Hmm.
You can't get anything with that.
Yeah.
You like there are times I'm like, okay, pay the mortgage, buy this material, pay the mortgage, buy this material. If I could go ahead and buy the materials by the time it's time for the mortgage to be late, maybe I'll have the payment in time. And a lot of people get tired of making those kind of decisions every month. But that's what happens. You're like, which Paul and Peter are going to be affected this month?
Hmm.
Then, you as an owner, you have to weigh that and then decide if it's really worth the fight. I personally think if I keep doing this and if I keep talking about it and if we keep trying to fix it, that it will get fixed. And then I can solve it.
Are there legislators you're aware of that are on ASA's side on this or on your side on this?
I believe they are. Don't ask me about names.
Yeah.
I'm not good with that part. But we've gotten positive feedback. Like I went with ASA when we went to Capitol Hill and explained to different representatives just what it is to be a contractor, specifically waiting on change orders, government related change orders, and that effect on us. And then some of the conversations that we have in the field over just trying to be seen as valid while we're pressing forward with this. Because I do know people are like, oh, and I clearly know it's not a black-white thing. So I don't want to put that out there. But if you're a Black person that can't pay your bills, it's seen differently from a white person that can't pay their bills. And it can be looked at as, well, what are you spending your money on? I'm like, and I say that because it's been said to me directly. So that notion is out there. I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
But to know in my heart that this is a collective issue, I can move past it. I'm like, you're just one of these people that don't know what you're talking about. So I'm going to leave it there. But this is a real thing, whether a big contractor or a small contractor, it's all relative. There are $20 million a year contractors that feel the same pain of me not getting $100,000 payment and them not getting a $2 million payment, right? It has the same effect. It's just quantity of scale. So I believe if we could just fix this for the entire industry, it would boost construction to another level. Just pay us on time, process change orders quickly and fairly. And if you can't afford this thing in your building, drop it. Stop. I mean, I can tell you there are probably subcontractors that have vested interest in every building that has ever been built because they were not funded for the work that was done in that building. I've watched federal contracts that I've been on celebrated. We came in on budget. I'm like, no, you didn't. Because you didn't pay me. That's how you came in under budget. You didn't pay me. So
Wow.
It's like if you can't afford it, don't request it. And if you want it, find a means to pay the person that did the work. I mean, it's only a fair thing to do.
Yeah. It's so what would you we're coming to the end here. What kind of what message would you want to give to your fellow subs or your fellow ASA members or anybody who happens to be listening to this podcast ultimately? How should they get involved? What would you want them to do? What message do you want to give to them?
What if you're a subcontractor? Lend us your voice at ASA. Like, help raise the noise level that this is a problem. and that we believe it can be solved. But unless all of us are speaking up, it just sounds like, there's this little entity over here that keeps saying it's a problem, but we're not hearing, that it's a problem from anyone else. So, like, lend us that. Come join us. Lend us your voice, lend us your stories. If you don't want to be a member of us, like, tell us your stories so we can get those stories out there, so we can try to come to some resolution on how we can all fix this it just seems so simple to fix it if we just knew why it took so long for what is it that takes this process so long that maybe collectively we can find an answer to it and fix it.
Yeah, you would think that there would be
Yeah.
a commission or a task force or something that could buckle down and figure it out.
Well, the thing is, they create all these task force for it, but it gets to a point where everybody's like, well, what is the answer? Like, what do we do? It just falls into a pit of nobody really knows how to fix it. So, well, it's working so far. Let's just keep doing the status quo. Because, like you said, the subs that go out of business, there's going to be another sub that comes along that doesn't know and will fall into the same trap that all of us have. And either in 10 or 20 years, they'll be here or they'll be gone and another one will come up.
It feels like there should be a subcontracting 101 course. Then everybody should go to ASA and say, okay, let's take subcontracting 101. This is what you're going to run into as a sub. And you can explain it all to them. And then, do you still want to do this or don't you want to do it?
We teach them about contract negotiations. We teach them about project management, everything we can on our end to make the subcontractor a good fit for the general contractor.
Yeah.
So if we can fix that part, it's still, I don't care how good you are at getting everything in and being aware of everything. If you can't get paid on time or timely, or if you run into just brick walls, retainage that's held for 2 years, it just becomes this money pit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's fun. I love what I do. I want to keep doing it until someone tells me I'm not allowed to do it anymore. But I'm going to keep on trying to find ways to get us paid on time.
Yeah. More power to you. That is a huge project. I know it's something that probably occupies a lot of your time as a business person. And so I commend you for your focus on that, and especially being a business owner and somebody who is, keeping people employed and keeping the nation humming along here.
Trying to.
Yeah. Sounds like you're doing pretty good, issues aside, to be in business for 20 years is nothing to sneeze at. So congrats to you.
I had my hurdles.
Yeah.
And, plenty of brick walls, plenty of, well, that wasn't the way to do it. Let's try something else. So I'm probably very good at falling off the cliff, just figuring out a way to climb back up again. So it's a hard journey. But I really love what I do. So
yeah,
keep on giving it my best.
But before we wrap up here, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important that we should get out there, that you want to share or talk about?
I don't know. I don't know. We've touched on pretty much everything that I wanted to comment on. But just maybe figuring out the right contract language to let legislators know that just because you say the word prompt pay, and because there's a Prompt Pay Act that requires that, there's a lot more behind what happens before the prompt pay even becomes an issue. Like it takes a lot for a general contractor just to get paid. So, and they will get us the check. Like, what can we do about banks that hold on to that money and don't release it to us so that we can use it? What do we do about changing the financing structures so that more construction companies can rely on bank loans and not predatory loans? Maybe, like, how do we get people to understand what construction is? Stop thinking that, okay, I see this general contractor sign out there. They built this building. No, they hired a whole bunch of people to build the building. And every single one of them is affected by what happens with the people that have their names on that building. So banking and equity funds and general contractors and owners that just hang on to money. Like, I would hate to think, though, we hear it all the time, they just didn't want to release it because they wanted to squeeze the last possible amount of interest on the money that they could. And they would say the money they made that month, they would save in construction fees if they just gave it to us and let us build their building and get it finished.
Truly robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes, purely robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's a real thing.
That's incredible. Huh.
We're going to keep trying to fix it.
I mean, you know, it is, you have to. I mean, it's, you know, it's people like you and other people in ASA who are aware of the problem and who are lending their voices to the effort, I think is like you said, how we're going to get there. So I think it's great to have your leadership on it and working with ASA. I'm sure they're thrilled to have you as well. So absolutely, yeah, it's just got to keep moving forward.
Yep. We're going to keep pressing.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Until someone says flat out no, and then even then it could be like maybe.
Great. Yeah, I mean,
no, and we'll go to the next.
It would have to be like seismic for there to be a solid no. There's just no way there could be a no on this. It's, you know, if you think commonsensically, there's a solution. And collectively, I think, you know, you all know the solution or you have a good handle on what it could be. And so it's just getting the right people in the same room and you know, maybe you've got to move a couple mountains here or there, but who knows?
But that is it. That is the playbook right now. Try to get enough voices and enough ears to hear it, to actually move some kind of legislation forward to fix it.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I mean, I wish you the best of luck. Obviously, you know, ASA is going to be working with you on this. I think we're going to probably have, I was speaking with Mike Oscar, who's the Director of Government Relations with ASA, and I think he and I are going to do an episode kind of as a follow-up to this conversation. So he can talk about a little bit about what ASA is doing, at least federally, to push this issue. So it's really important. I thank you for joining me today. You know, this is, I think it's going to be great information for the organization to get out to people.
Well, thank you for letting me lend my voice. I appreciate it.
And you're welcome back anytime. If there's more to talk about, let's do it. So.
Okay.
Sounds good. Listening to the ASA podcast. For more subcontractor focused content, visit us at asaonline.com and fastcares.org. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.